So we'll read from the text. Last week when we met, we read arrival. Today we want to read beginnings, the second part. The first part was arrival. So we want to read beginnings. Beginnings. It was the custom when one of our old bones fell, not from the shaft of a hunter's bow, nor the dread talons of the terrible ones, but by rare, benign repose, for the eldest surviving child to sing and dance or dwell, joined by relations alike, to thank the mother of all earth, who keeps the forest filled with food, above all, the great source of all, who holds the firmament for us to show forth our one triumphant gift. So what you notice from this reading, remember I have said that when a work of art talks about animal, that is just the surface meaning. Because the deep meaning of that work is that it is using animals to represent human beings. And so, in this work, at the surface meaning, we are talking about animals. And perhaps we read the books to children who would like to make them believe that it is talking about animals. But we can draw parallels with human society and human characters. And that is the aspect that is most important for us in this discussion. So, the birds have a tradition to honor the elderly ones when they die. Okay? That's why it says it was the custom when one of our old bones fell. That's a poetic statement because what you find in the second line, when one of our old bones there is a metonym. It's a metonym for the elderly in society. People who have lived to a ripe age. So, but you know, poets don't always use words like we do in ordinary everyday expression. The poets usually find creative and imaginative ways to say what they need to say. And so instead of saying when elderly people die, or when old people die, simply say old bone. So that is a metonym for people who have lived to full ripe age. All right? So you can take note of that. So, when one of our old bones fell, you have metonymy there, because old bones, as an expression, is used to refer to the aged, the elderly in society. So when one of our old bones fell there, it's euphemism as well, because fell there refers to dying, but the person does not want to use the dreaded word die, so they now use so the poet uses fell instead of dying to mitigate, to make it mild, because that's what euphemism does. Euphemism renders a harsh, dreadful occurrence in a mild way. Okay? So, not from the shaft of a hunter's bow. That tells us that in traditional societies, one of the occupations of the people was hunting. Okay? not the dread talons of the terrible ones. People could die tragically. People could die tragically, maybe attacked by another animal. Okay? Could be attacked by another animal. But by rare benign repose. Rare benign repose is a way of dying that is natural. Okay? Natural death. Natural causes at a ripe old age. It's rare because this does not happen often. Okay? It's only the few people that are blessed with longevity. Okay? So for the elder surviving child to sing and dance or dwell. So when someone dies of old age, there's no need to cry. That's our tradition. Okay? At least you won't cry compared to if the person who passed away died at a young age. When someone dies at a young age in our tradition, it is a serious loss. People usually cry without being comforted. But it is also believed that when someone lives to a ripe old age and dies, it is not mourning, it is celebration. That's what we are normally told. Okay? So that is why it might look a bit absurd or paradoxical to say that the surviving child should sing and dance, that someone has passed away. It's absurd. Okay, so that is the kind of paradox there in that expression. You know, a paradox is an expression that sounds contradictory and nonsensical until when closely examined or when deeply examined or when philosophically examined. So why do we celebrate when someone dies? You might ask. It might look inhumane, you know, because in Western tradition, when people die, it's time for sadness. But in this particular case, when you investigate, you realize that since this person has lived to old age, there's really, in our culture, there's really no need for us to mourn. It is something, it's a cause for celebration. Joined by relations alive to thank the mother of all earth. So someone dies and we have to give thanks to God. Okay? Who has given that person life, because life, it is said, it is believed, comes from God. So you have that tradition of Africans showing gratitude in every situation. Okay? Including the one that is being described. Okay? The mother of all earth, who keeps the forest filled with food. Okay? So Africa is a deeply religious space, and Akwa Ibom people and culture share in that belief. If you have food to eat, then it is the supply of the gods. If you have health, then that is because the gods have granted you health, and so on and so forth. So you have to give thanks to God for every good thing that has come your way. So that is the perception, that is the tradition, that is the culture, that is the value. Above all, the great source of all, who holds the firmament for us to show forth our triumphant gift. We are here because there is a higher force that keeps everything in place, so that the earth does not consume us, because you know there could be instances where you could have earthquake, People could be buried in seconds, but you're still alive, so this force gives life to the people, allow most of them to live to old age, and so it requires that we show gratitude to God. So, what this speaks to Akwa Ibom indigenous culture and tradition is that we are deeply spiritual people. We love God and we believe in God, and we are grateful in all situations, even in death. But in this case, it has to be an elderly person who has lived to a ripe old age. It's pastor. Okay? It even aligns with the Bible principle that we should give thanks in all situations. So that was the beginnings. Then we have, under beginnings, we have Ballad of the Birds. I'm going on to read Ballads of the Birds. So structurally, what I noticed is that the poems are written in free verse. There's 10 notes of that, structurally, stylistically, and structurally. The poems in Ime Ikiddeh's The Vulture's Funeral and Reincarnation were telling verse. The poems are written in free verse. The author has made use of enjambment. The author has made use of enjambment. The author has made use of enjambment or run and line. That's what you will notice when you read the poem. Because an idea in one line flows into another. So let me read Ballad of the Birds. Remember that ballad is one of the indigenous poetic forms in Akwa Ibom indigenous literature. Because even when you listen to the radio, at times you hear people reciting what they call ballad. All right? Good. Oh, for wings spread in weather fair, with a mild wind winnowing you on. Oh, to sail the clouds in the up of a dying sun, search for a night's resting place, in leisurely turns and dashing dives. That's a joy only the feathered breed will ever know. That's a delight words cannot convey. What are legs to us compared with wings? What is the hold on land against the unfettered freedom of the air? Ask the penguin, the way he feels with wings. I refuse to soar. Talk to the ostrich, and you will know what use are legs if they can only run. How dull the arms that never embrace the clouds. Praise to the mother of all earth, for all that turns into droppings gathered from the earth to feed back earth from heavens above. All praise to the source of all, who keeps us aloft in air or perched, who guides us safely down to earth to land and take up as we please. Oh, sing, ye special breed of arrow life, for the envied gifts of our race. Oh, dance, ye favored in creation, for the bounteous blessings of flight. So what you notice here is that the birds, this ballad is to show gratitude to God for creating them as birds that can fly, because they believe that it is the best existence. The best existence is for you to live in the air, not like some people who live on land, all right? And do not know the joy of flying. So when you read this poem as a human being, it makes you envy the life of birds. You want to be birds sometimes by reading the book. But you see, it speaks to how human beings usually are grateful to the Creator for creating them and making all things beautiful for them because they feel that they're in perfect place in creation. But reading about how birds are also grateful to the Creator also makes us understand that perhaps there's another experience as human beings that we are here to enjoy. Okay, that might be other people also have, other creatures also have advantages over us in terms of the nature of their existence. So that's what I noticed there. So the ballad is a praise to Mother of all earth and source of all. Remember that repetition, Mother of all earth and source of all. So you could see that from my reading, there are birds who cannot fly. You find that in the second stanza of Ballads of the Birds, the penguin and the ostrich have wings but they cannot fly. So the birds are thanking God that they have wings and they can fly, unlike those other birds that have wings but they cannot fly, like the penguin and the ostrich. Okay? It's also like when people thank God for having food and they can eat, whereas others have food but they can't eat. Okay? So that is how it works there. So they really value their creation. They think that their creation is perfect. And they are grateful to God for that. So the birds live aerial life. I mean, they live in the air. So you pay attention to the imagery being deployed in the poem, especially kinetic imagery. Kinetic imagery refers to words or expressions that depict movement. For instance, you have the word spread in the first line, O for wing spread. Then you have winnowing you on. In leisurely turns and dashing dives. These expressions depict kinetic imagery. The expression feathered breed is a metonym for birds. It's a metonym for birds. Who are said to enjoy unfettered freedom, and like human beings. Birds can fly whenever they want, then they land on the ground whenever they want. But human beings can only move around the earth. So birds have unfettered freedom. Unlike the penguin. Okay, so that's it for Ballads of the Birds. Let's move on to preparation for reception. By long tradition, at events like this, a family and relations would show their hand to all who came calling. Some were known friends, others what might pass for sympathizers of sorts. No great effort required. At best times, as a funeral, were gatherings for the forest, the shores of rivers, or else the laughs of lakes. Far from the prowl of lions and the lesser beasts of terror, far from the hands of hunters, belonging to that haughty race, two-legged mammals who dress and carry themselves as some super homo sapiens. No ordeal for an average family performing a family rite, where known customs were obeyed and simple courtesies observed. One such custom from our father's wisdom and counsel of old was to provide for all the guests vessels of universal taste that some clans and backward tribes with particulars of prelate and common might not stretch the resources of the host. So quaint oddities of taste or style did not become for others of the violent rage a reprehensible offense. Consider that it was a rule that during the concourse of birds, farting and defecation be kept under severe control. Therefore, the duck, whose bowels seemed forever to be on the loose, had gone on voluntary suspension from meetings of the feathered breed. As for vultures, they had to learn to do without that delight of their clan. Carrion was now placed strictly under ban from the common menu of birds. One habit in particular, forbidden any time birds meet, was for some of us to prey on others of our kind, no matter what kind of might the powerful ones may possess over those considered weak and small. Of such menace had the exploit of predators become that all birds meet, it was feared the weaker ones might be able, it was feared that weaker ones might table a motion calling for an end to all acts of terror provoked in all climes at all times, of one winged life against another. If that dayed as well they didn't, rumors came strong that hawk and falcon were ready with a motion to counter what they described as the growing insolence of tiny thoughts without trunk or tail. Today's funeral was no ordinary event. Attendants could run into 10 times the impressive number recorded at the obsequies of a venerable grandfather. That indeed was one send-off in 1,000. Old Heron's longevity became the talk of the forest far and near. At 6, he was Saurian dead. At 8, bat blind in both eyes. There was a custom for birds to get together every other year to listen to serious complaints, to settle some dispute, and adopt new strategies to survive in a world where to live daily, even in the firm safety of trees, had become a battle of wits. Vulture had received notice that Congress this year would meet while his mother was being laid to rest. That was why he had to spend sleepless nights gathering flies and worms and berries and plums and pots of wine drawn from the sweetest of the tap. In normal times, attendants would be from all corners of the sky, while delegates attend from the sea. Vulture should have had no problem gathering the usual staff if his half-brothers and cousins had come to his assistance, but rumors making forest rounds talked of the guise of late soaring high on draw, extracted from fermented fruits of selected yields. Nor was that all. Living thus in the height of sensation, the group was known to torment birds who were not of their mettle. They had to also dare to seize weapons from human hunters, who then swore vengeance on all our kind, including those yet unborn. From now, with delegates arriving, some from distant climes, the larger Vulture family was nowhere in sight. No alarm as Congress hours remained as fleet as the many of the day. So that is preparation for reception. The deeper we go into the poems, the more realities we uncover in the world of the birds that could parallel the world of humans. And so that's because that's how you're supposed to read the poem. As you see realities in the world of the birds, as a human being, you could see how they could be linked to the human world. Because we are not talking about birds here, we're actually talking about human beings. So again, in this poem, we see that the world of the birds is rule governed. The world of the birds is what? Rule governed. So what this means is that in every society, there are rules that guide the conduct of the members of society. So what this means is that in pre-colonial Akwa Ibom societies, we do not live without rules and regulations. Because this is what actually makes society civilized, organized. Because these rules are meant to make for a peaceful coexistence among members of society. So it is wrong for the colonial masters to say that we were not civilized. Because the truth here is that we had rules, institutions, we had laws that protected the weak from the strong. We had rules to keep society clean and safe, and so on and so forth. And that's what happens in civilized societies. For instance, from the beginning there, we know that in society some people are powerful, others are weak. But it cannot be because you are powerful, then you can just prey on the weak ones as you want. So there has to be a rule that protects everyone, both the weak and the strong. And it's only a civilized society that has such rules. A society where the powerful are allowed to prey on the weak ones as they like is not a civilized society. Another thing we've noticed here is that there's the spirit of hospitality among the people. Remember, we're not talking about birds here, we're actually talking about human beings, Akwa Ibom people. Okay? From indigenous societies, Akwa Ibom pre-colonial societies. Hospitality. In fact, this value of hospitality is linked to all African societies. And whenever I teach students colonialism, how colonialism came to be in Africa, you see that I always tell them that hospitality was one of the reasons. Okay? That is giving excessively without checking. Okay? Unchecked hospitality destroyed Africa. Africa welcomed strangers, believing that they were good like them. So hospitality is seen in the preparation for the guests, gathering of worms and flies so that everybody will eat when they come for the event. Okay? Safety at the Congress venue, because it's not only the funeral that will take place, Congress will also take place. That's the conference of the birds, or what you might call meeting of the birds, like annual meeting of the birds. So in this year, they want to use the occasion of the funeral, Vulture's mother's funeral, to also hold the Congress. So it's like two events in one. Or killing two birds with one stone. So the Congress venue has to be safe as well. That's why there are rules as well. Okay, so the rules in the safety of the Congress venue is to make sure that lions do not attack the birds, that human beings do not also attack the birds. See how they are describing human beings. Far from the haunts of hunters, belonging to that haughty race. They're describing human beings as haughty race of two-legged mammals, according to human beings there. So according to, as far as the birds are concerned, all of you are proud and haughty because you kill them like they are nothing. So next time you want to kill the bird, know that they have a society, they have mother, they have fathers. Okay? Who dress and carry themselves as some super homo sapiens. Okay? Or what they're talking about birds or human beings. So the conference venue has to be in such a way that human beings will not surprise the birds when they are meeting. Or any other hunter, whether animal or otherwise. There was also a rule to keep the Congress venue safe, health-wise. So this rule, for instance, I'm going to read this paragraph. Because a society that has rules and regulations is a civilized society. Consider that it was a rule that during the Congress of Birds, farting and defecation be kept under severe control. Therefore, the dog whose balls seemed forever to be on the loose had gone on voluntary suspension. Okay, the dog is not to be found around that place. As for vultures, they had to learn to do without the delight of their clan. What is the delight of their clan? Eating carcasses. Okay? Carrion was now placed strictly under ban from the common menu of birds. There's also rule to stop cannibalism among the birds. That's eating of their own kind. That is seen in the next stanza. One habit in particular, forbidden any time birds meet, was for some of us to prey on others of our kind. In this context, it will be human beings eating human beings. You know, cannibalism has a long history in human societies. The Europeans who came to Africa and accused us of being uncivilized were cannibals. They even thought that by eating human beings or some parts of human beings, they would be healed of certain diseases. I guess you were not aware of that. Even Charles II by the 18th century or 17th century that we are talking about was still engaged in one form of cannibalism or the other, as a way of medication, like grinding human skull mixed with certain things to drink for health reasons. So there's always been that tendency for human beings to prey on other human beings, or one race to prey on the same race. And the way we look at cannibalism in modern times is different, because we're looking at it from the literal perspective. Because cannibalism, we're looking at it from the figurative perspective. Because the laws have been made to stop literal cannibalism, right? Where you just pick another human being, kill and eat. It still happens, but society generally frowns upon it, all right? But the figurative cannibalism continues. Okay? So you need to understand. The figurative cannibalism continues in the form of oppression of our leaders, the oppression that our leaders mete out to the people that they rule, keeping them in perpetual suffering, perpetual subjectivity, lying to them, and stealing their commonwealth. That is figurative cannibalism. So, there was a custom for birds to get together every other year to listen to serious complaints, to settle some disputes, and adopt new strategies for survival in a world where to live daily, even in the firm safety of trees, had become a battle of wits. Survival of the race is important. And so this necessitates meetings on a yearly basis to strategize on how that survival is to be undertaken. Okay? So the bird society is seen to be a highly structured society. It is democratic in nature because the people gather to take decisions that concern themselves after deliberation. So it's more or less a democratic society. That's what we can glean from the point. So towards the end of that point, we are told that the delegates are arriving at the venue. Even now, with delegates arriving from some distant climes, the larger Vulture family was nowhere in sight. But no alarm, as Congress hours remain as fluid at the beginning of the day. That speaks up to the concept of African time. If we say that something is going to happen in Africa, and I normally say something is going to happen in the morning, or in the afternoon, or in the evening, or at night. That's African time. So Congress hours remained as fleet as the menu of the day. So the next poem that I like to read there is Fruits of the Forest, entitled Fruits of the Forest. As for the common test of birds, the forest that feeds the monkey and the mouse, the same places on their backs the ants, the gnats, and the fly, the same natures the millipede, grasshopper, spider, and the worm, and other tiny creatures that daily form the substance of our meals. It is the same a family will gather into some protected patch of land, well guarded for a night or two, to make from that assortment a fine funeral feast. As for wine, let the unsuspecting tapper swear it is the sun who unrolls his tongue at midday into the wine pot and laps up the sweet wine of the wine tree. We alone know how much the sun consumes in his thirst, what part we sip in quiet glee, be it in humid heat or in Harmattan's chilly breath. And what of all the variety of fruit and the seed in season that turn the forest into a veritable choir? What of the barks and twigs and leaves that clatter the woods, dark with dew, spreading a rich, moist smell across verdant orchards and vast, fructuous farmlands? When seeds swirl with mellow hue before the soft sweetness bursts with juice to tempt small creatures to an unending feast, that's when the bunches of fruits invite us to the richest dinner and the gullet sticks, and the sight know with the smell of such mixed grill. Oh, the forest yields and yields bounties of more delicacies than one can name, and none that would cause discomfort to us, our children, or our guests. And why should they? The mother hen ate from the refuse dump, the father hen fed from the refuse heap, the child hen walks in the same footsteps. Was it ever heard that the hen suffered barrenness from the food of the refuse pit? Or that elephantiasis of the testicles had afflicted the cock? Permit me to pause here a while. I am son of the parrot, and talking is my life. Okay, so we know that at the end of the poem, we know that the author is the parrot speaking. Parrot is known for, yes, talking too much, or speech ability, or skill in speech making. So in Forest of the Birds, we see, or the poet depicts, the riches of the earth that provide for all creatures. In fruits of the forest, right? In fruits of the forest, the poet depicts the riches of the earth that provide for all creatures, specifically the birds. It shows that the earth is rich enough to provide for all that lives in it. It also shows the cycle of dependency in nature and among creatures. What this particular person does can provide food for this other creature. For instance, the birds get their wine or their palm wine from the tree left by human beings after tapping from the palm tree. And so we are told in the poem that the the tapper will think that it is the sun's heat that's lowered the volume of the palm wine on the tree, not knowing that the birds also contribute when the tapper is not watching, also drinking the wine. Okay? Above all, in the forest there are a variety of fruits for the birds to enjoy. And they make beautiful sound when they are eating these fruits. This is rendered in beautiful poetry for us. So the birds have taste. They select what they eat. They know what they want to eat. They can take nuts from the backs of animals. Okay? Sometimes you could see in certain season when the birds can land on cows and pick their food from them. Okay? Probably by doing that, they're also saving the cows from discomfort from those things on their body, those nuts. So that's how nature works. So there's kind of symbiosis, right? A kind of symbiosis depicted here, because it's not depicted as predatory. It's not predatory. It's not parasitic, but it's a kind of benign chain of relationship in terms of what one takes from this one to eat acts as benefits both the person who is eating and the person being ate from. That's how it works. But the modern world works based on parasitic relationship. That means the person who takes from the host is the parasite, and the host has nothing to gain from that taking. In fact, at the end of the day, the host is supposed to die, because the person taking is not giving something back. But in nature, what exists is a symbiotic relationship, where if I take from you, I'm probably taking what you don't need or the leftover, or what I'm taking will benefit you. So let me take like the first line again so that you see. As for the common taste of birds, the first that fits the monkey and the mouse, the same places on their backs, the gnat, the ant, the gnat, and the fly, the same nurtures the millipede, grasshopper and spider and the worm, and other tiny creatures that daily form the substance of our meals. Okay? So the monkey will not eat nuts, but the monkey might have nuts on the back that the bird will go and pick and eat. And then it saves the monkey from discomfort of the skin, but then it at the same time feels the bird's hunger. That's what we mean by symbiosis and the symbiotic relationship that exists in nature. That's how nature is supposed to work. That's how life is supposed to work, in symbiotic relationship, not parasitic relationship that has come to define the modern world. So the birds eat grasshopper, worms, they eat flies, ants. Okay, that's their taste. Sometimes they snack on fruits. That's why sometimes when you go to take your mango, you see that some portion has been sacrificed. Okay, might be one kind of bird that's eating it. So that's how the world works. So we're going to part 3 of this book now, and it is called Congress. Congress is happening Proper. After the usual preliminaries, the meeting proper started. Old Ostrich was in the chair, while Hornbill handled the records. Then we have the botched libation. The botched libation. As always, when Congress met, where a funeral was also held, the offer of libation belonged by right to the eldest male in the family of the bereaved. To the oldest male in the family of the bereaved. Only that in this case, a grave doubt lingered as to whether libation offered by one of the vultures will reach beyond the tops of trees or sink below the outer crust of earth in view of the old curse known for ages. Names were being whispered as to who should be assigned the duty when the oldest vulture threw up his bald head, cleared his croaky throat, and then began. Mighty source of all things, whose abode lies beyond the clouds, great mother of all earth, who gave birth to all that breathes. We, your creatures, filter in between, your awesome shadows, unable to help ourselves except by your strength and will. From you, primal source, we derive our being. From you, bounteous mother, is our sustenance. How can we thank you enough for who you are, for who we are? How can we praise you enough for how we live? Our blessing started that same day you rightly decided we should mediate between you and humankind. That duty is still ours to discharge in spite of envy by those without mettle or might. Hold us aloft hold us aloft, Almighty One. And when we come down to solid earth, let it be by our own volition, not by the arrow of a hunter's accursed. Not by the arrow of a hunter accursed. When we perch in the foliage of trees, may we sidestep the fangs of the python and the poisonous breath of the cobra. At intervals, he drinks drops of wine from a cupped leaf, lifts his head up and throws a spittle of it into the air. So that's libation. The libation of human beings, that the wine has to go to the earth, spot on the earth. But the libation of the birds is that the wine is spit into the air. So you note that. At intervals, he drinks drops of wine from a cupped leaf, lifts his head up and throws a spittle of it into the air as the libation. Libation is usually the pouring of drinks punctuated with words, speaking of words. Are we not of your progeny, the most beloved? Are we not the breed on which you rub your feet? You gave us wings so we can dive and soar. You gave us beaks so we can pick and eat. May our wings never break in flight. May the earth eternally fill with food. Loud, long acclamation, because it has to do with food. We say, yes, amen, amen. And let us smell the choicest dish, even when it is a whole village away. May the mouth ulcer stay away from our lips. May stomach ache never win against our palate. Another acclamation, not as pronounced. We are meeting today to pay respect to a departed mother of note, she who would not kill anyone in life, but spared no carcass, be it of friend or foe. The vulture will not kill anything that is alive, but will wait patiently until it has died. Okay? So that is one of the attributes. When people die, we speak of the attributes, the great things that they used to do, their manners, and all of that. So this is the one of the vulture. She who would not kill anyone in life, but spared no carcass, be it of friend or foe. So once there's a carcass, it doesn't matter whether the carcass was once the vulture's friend or enemy, the vulture will take it and become food because it has died. Okay? At this, many birds shift on their page, while some utter expressions of disdain. So there's a kind of humor in this poem. Next are enemies. Both man and beast save us from their traps and ready teeth. Save us from their knives, point of their spears. This particular prayer is widely acclaimed by the birds. But you see, that's how nature works. This one is a prey to this one, and this one is a prey to this one, and this one is a prey to this one, and this one is a prey to this one, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the birds also have what they eat, but human beings also wait for the birds to eat them. That's how nature works. As for those who say the vulture who picks up their dead relations free and clean is not fit to eat, neither is he fit for meat, may the spirit of the air they traverse bless them for such kind, caring words, so they may live and forever provide the tastiest meat for the chief of birds. So this is where the botched libation takes place. A commotion rose and filled the air, thus bringing to an unsavory end, all vultures' clannish insinuations, unacceptable in a communal libation, reprehensible within the spirit of Congress. To avoid a massive flyout canvassed by some radical ones, the chairman quickly called the next item, even before calm returned to Congress. If I tell you I did not support the agitators, I will not be the true son of my father. So that's perhaps the parrot still speaking. So it is because of what I may call hate speech by the vultures, one of the vultures' children, that has brought about the botched libation. Botched libation means that it comes abruptly to an end. It's not allowed to end well. And why? Look at the last expression that he makes. As for those who say the vulture who picks up their dead relations free and clean is not fit to eat, neither is he fit for meat. May the spirit of the air they traverse bless them for such kind, caring words, which is ironic, right? It's ironic because the word is not kind and caring. So they may live and forever provide the tastiest meat for the chief of birds. So the birds do not like that. That's why there's a commotion that brings about the end of that libation, so that the chairman of the Congress quickly calls for another item. That's why we have the botched libation. So you take notes so that you understand these things and the movements of the poems. So the botched libation refers to the sudden end, the abrupt end of the libation poured by one of the vulture's sons, because of hate speech, or because of a speech that threatens the peace and tranquility of the animal, the survival of the other animals. Because they don't find it funny that the vulture eats them when they die. And such issues should not be raised in the Congress of the birds. So you take note of that. Then I'll read Battle of the Bats. The first hearing was Bat's appeal, a sad case of mixed identity. Rejected in the animal kingdom, Bat now insisted he was a bird. An old judgment was being restated, alas, not in his favor. Did he have a spinal column, like all birds, from the skull, and could he wag a tail? Could he show his feathers and the barbels of his wings? Produce evidence to prove that his wife had a children, all by the laying of eggs. By the time the questions ended, poor Bat was nowhere to be seen, which only went to confirm the saying of our forefathers that it was the disastrous error of flight which first tempted the bat into nursing the dangerous notion that he was, after all, a bird. All right. So this is what I might call discrimination in human societies. This particular point can help us appreciate how why some people are discriminated against society. Racism, okay, can be built, the theme of racism can be built into this point because the bat is discriminated against in the community of birds. Because the birds do not see the bat as one of their own. And so they decide to ask him questions whose answer will prove whether he's a bird or not. Okay? So the first hearing of the Congress is Bat's appeal. Bat has brought an appeal for him to be considered as a bird, having been rejected in the animal kingdom. Okay? So he now wants to belong to the birds. This shows the theme of identity and belonging. Okay? Human beings always want to belong to a group. All right? It's always, I want to belong to this group, I want to belong to that group. All right? Human beings hardly find it difficult to exist on their own and in isolation. Okay? So, and sometimes people are traumatized when they are pushed out of a group or an association. Okay? So it's only the very top ones that could survive alone. Okay, so, and it's unfortunate also that people make mistakes, terrible mistakes, by joining any association, whatever it is, their principles and goals, simply because they want to belong. Okay, they want to have identity. Okay, and that's the problem here. So it's the battle of the bat. Bat has been battling identity crisis. One of the themes you can pick from this poem is identity crisis. The bat has been battling an identity crisis. Having been rejected in the human world, now wants to be a bird. So the persona calls it a sad case of mixed identity. Okay? So one of the things that will make bats to be considered a bird is if he has a spinal column like all other birds, if he can wag a tail, okay, like all other birds, if he has feathers like all other birds, okay, and was he born through the laying of the eggs? Okay, all other birds. So before this question were even asked, bat has disappeared because it knows that it's not going to work. All right. So we move on to Cry of the Crow. Cry of the Crow. Here comes one, a full bird by every count. His feathers are made of sackcloth. His color is of kitchen soup. Brother of the rook and heaven, brother of the rook and raven, kinsman of the mighty vulture, you visit death. On the weak and small, you carry death. Your talons and bows, or when you clear your throat in a neighborhood, the inhabitants know a coffin must walk. A coffin must walk out of the homestead. A bringer of bad tidings, who smells the blood of children, will be stillborn the year after next. Stand up, tell the world what your song today portends. When he buried his father, Crow had been warned that any time birds met, he should save himself the pain of trying to entertain with his song. It was nature's, not his doing, that his voice was not among the most beautiful in the world. Today, he called and croaked his way loudly to his speech, as if the world was coming to a sudden end. When he was summoned to center stage to account for his unwholesome noise, Crow simply flapped his wings, turned round and round on the spot, and let out one loud, husky scream that broke his coarse voice into bits. He was declared insane. So, in this point, we see that the crow does not have a good voice. And so, based on an event that happened in the previous funeral, he was told never to sing again. All right? There are some people like that. When they sing, the world scatters. Okay? And apart from that, we are also told of some of his characteristics. He's a bird of prey. We are also told of his pigmentation, which is dark. And that's what makes him related to the raven and the rook. And in his appetite, is related to the vulture. So most of the poem describe the characteristics that make the crow a bird of prey. In your talons and bows, for when you clear your throat in a neighborhood, the inhabitants know a coffin must walk out of the homestead. So that birds that whenever they arrive, they must eat something. Someone must die. Okay? And then so, apart from telling us about the characteristics of this bird, apart from telling us about the characteristics of this bird, we are also told of the story behind their existence, a narrative about them. Because that narrative has to intertwine with the earthly existence, with how they are perceived by other members of society. The narrative has to intertwine with the identity among the birds, how they are perceived. So every individual has to grapple with identity issues. And identity begins with how the individual perceives himself and how member of society perceives of the individual. Excuse me. So that is very important. So if we are to talk about the identity of the crow here, we will classify him into predator. It's a predator. It's black. It's feared among the birds. It has a terrible voice and was banned never to sing again. Okay? And the noise that it makes now in the meeting disrupts the meeting. And being that it speaks out of order, is considered to be insane. at the end of the poem. Okay? So this is where we bring the lecture to a close considering the Vulture's funeral. When you get the text, you can read the rest of the poems in the book. But when we meet again next week, we'll take on another book, which is Repose of Rebirth by Martin Akwa. A very beautiful movie.